Now, we have come to the last session of our evening, Living Bridges, Young India Shaping the UK and Beyond. This session seeks to explore the impact of young Indians, whether they're students, entrepreneurs, or professionals, on the UK, its economy, and the world at large. Without wasting a minute, let me introduce the moderator for the session, myself, Aishwarya Giri, and my colleague, Shauradev, Master Students of International Relations at LSE. We are honored to have a very diverse panel for our last session. Renowned speakers from the field of politics, entrepreneurship, and law. Today, we have Shri K. Annamalai ji, the State President, Tamil Nadu, Bharatiya Janta Party, and also a former Indian Police Service officer. We have Mr. Krupesh Hirani, London Assembly member for Brent and Harrow, Labour and Co-operative Party. Please give him a huge round of applause. Mr. Anil Shetty, founder of MetaMan, India's first exclusive men's jewelry brand. And Ms. Sharmila Mehta, UK immigration lawyer to global organizations and international families, Keystone Law. She was also the shortlist judge for Asian Women of Achievement. Dear esteemed panelists, we are truly honored to have you grace our session with your presence. Please give them a huge round of applause.
Thank you, Aishwarya. It is truly exciting to be a part of this vibrant panel, and we cannot here to wait to hear all your diverse views and insights into building closer and increasing collaboration between India and UK. India last year overtook China as the country with the highest number of sponsored student visas in the UK, with over 118,000 Indian students coming to the UK in 2022. And Aishwarya and I were among the 118,000 who came to the UK last year. So we thought it would be befitting for two of our student community to moderate this panel. These young minds that come from India bridge the long distance between our two countries, and hence we call them the living bridges. India, as I mentioned, Indian students not only make up the largest cohort of international students in the UK, but around the world. Indian doctors, engineers are at the forefront of global development. We are leading global companies from Google, Microsoft, Adobe, IBM to Starbucks. And at the same time, now we have an Indian origin British Prime Minister. We have an Indian origin Vice President of the United States. And I mean, the list goes on, which brings me to my first question. And if I can have your brief opening thoughts, starting from Shri Annamalai ji. How do you see young Indians in the future and now contributing to the global economic, innovation, and cultural landscape? And how can rising India's demographic dividend be beneficial to the world at large?
Thank you, sir. It's a great privilege to be here to talk to very young minds. Possibly the gentlemen and ladies sitting here will shape the global discourse in the years to come. And you mentioned about 180,000 students. You two are part of the 180,000. I was checking with the High Commissioner yesterday. We just crossed 215,000 this year. So it shows the kind of potential the young India is offering. The kind of India and UK, we always had very close historic relationship, very, very close relationship for a long time. And especially at one end, we are seeing India as a growing economic powerhouse, $3.6 trillion economy, growing very, very fast. We just became the world's most populous nation, 142 crore. And 66% of our population is below the age of 35. Just believe it, below the age of 35, 66% of our population. If you look at the Fortune 500 companies in the world, 60 companies out of 500, they have an Indian origin CEO. The number 2, the number 3, the Google and Microsoft, they all have an Indian origin CEO. So at one end, the young population of India, the dynamic population of India, both of you like you, very fearless, traveling outside the country, getting into countries like UK, US, studying, coming back and enriching the culture. Second, with respect to the cultural scene, and we all know India is a very very complex country culturally. At the last count, the official language of India is about 22. And languages with more than 10,000 speakers. We have 121 languages with more than 10,000 speakers. I was arguing with a friend right from the day I was born in India. And we see a lot of cultural asimilarity between people. I cross 50 kilometers away, different dress, different food code, different language, different dialect. So the young people get adapted to this culturally. So you come to UK, for you it is very easier. You go to US, for you it is very easier. So that is going to be India's greatest contribution to the globe 10 years from now. And the students from India, when they go across to any part of the world, they get adapted so fast to that culture. And since it's a brief opening remark, I'm very sure the historic partnership between India and UK will go very, very deep. And we also become the number one country with the largest FDI into UK, where we just became. And so this partnership cannot be taken away. This is a very deep partnership, very cultural partnership, very deep economic partnership, and a partnership that is going to stand the test of time.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think I'm incredibly lucky where I represent in Brent and Harrow. I have 140,000 residents who identify as Indian at the last census. I'm sure it's more. And when you mention the phrase, the living bridge, that's exactly how I feel. I myself am of Indian descent, but actually it's my constituents. They have the power to connect India to the UK, not just where I am in Brent and Harrow, but across London, because a quarter of all Indians in the UK live in London. And London's an international global city. The way I see it, it's a gateway to the rest of the world. And no one community, if you look at London in general, dominates in terms of population, but everyone brings their connection to their home city or home country as well. Today I was with my community celebrating the 75 years of the Windrush with the Caribbean community. And part of that is actually connecting the UK and London's diaspora with what we have abroad. And India becomes even more important when we're looking at connecting the UK and London with other countries. The reason for that is it is the world's largest democracy. So we talk about the population figures and the changes, but actually in that part of the world, democracy is not very common. And if you're looking at, even from a global security point of view, where we have in the UK and UK government the issues that the UK government is having with states like Russia and China, India is a very important partner in championing a successful democracy. And we have the bridges with our community, with business leaders, with cultural ties, to make sure that we take advantage of those links. But also what I will add is that it's about a level playing field, because the UK's relationship with India in the past has not been level. And I spoke about Windrush 75, but also the empire and Great Britain's empire across the globe, and the relationship with India is of the past. And now, if we are going to see a new relationship in the future, it has to be on more equal terms. And we know and we recognise that India's economy will be larger, is larger than the UK's. The population is larger. So we may even see a turnaround in how the globe views India.
Shetty.
Let me take cue from Annamalai and also reiterate what Prime Minister of India, our beloved Narendra Modi ji, described India's period as the Amrit Kal. So why it's Amrit Kal? Because median age of Indian is 28. And we constitute largest software engineers in the world. And India exports about $200 billion of software to the world. So we can be called, earlier India was called as a spiritual capital, we continue to be, and we can also be called eventually the technology capital of the world. And this young population is going to fuel India's growth to become 10 trillion by 2031 and about 31 trillion by 2047. I am hopeful that India will become richer before we become older, because median age of Brit is 37 and Japanese is 47 and we are 28. And 1 out of 5 people in the world is an Indian. So look at how big the India is, the scale of India, and what India could offer to the world. We have sent about 1.9 million people here, like 1.9 million Indian origin people live in UK, 60,000 doctors. We literally run your UK's healthcare system, right? So, well, India and UK's relationship is quite interesting because we had 275 years and we know each other very well. So, we know very well. So, I think on a positive note, we know the strength and weakness of each one of us. And I think that UK has done phenomenally well during the industrial age. So, UK was a leader during the industrial age. But UK lost it during the digital age. Let me put it in word, because we are much ahead. If you have to pick 3 countries which are ahead in technology, which is US, China, and India. So because we are large, we are scale. So I think while I was coming here, one of our common friend, Mohandas Pai, which is Annamalai, he called me and he said, this India Global Forum, you should tell Manoj, I think Manoj is here, he is listening, that India and UK should launch the India-UK Digital Partnership Mission. So I think Manoj should take it to the Prime Minister of India, and Annamalai should take it to our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji. Because there's something to look forward to, because of course, population-wise, your 65 million is as good as Karnataka, so we are 65 million in Karnataka. I'm just putting numbers in place because we are a number country, right? So we are large, 1.4 billion people with the, as he said, 65% of the people below the age of 35, then just count. So how big we are and what we could offer to the India. And India's digital economy is 1 trillion. So that's massive. And I think we have done phenomenally well. And we are going to be the world's superpower in terms of technology, in terms of economy. And we continue to be this spiritual superpower which we are very proud of where we come from. I think India's strength lies in our roots. And that's what we offer to the world. And we, the young people of India, have a lot to offer in terms of our understanding of the world. And I would say that we are all people with big dreams. So we Indians have big, big dreams. And the collective dream of the young population of India constitutes India's biggest dream to become the Vishwaguru.
Indeed, I mean, India is a leader in the digital space, and the NHS has a lot of Indian doctors that we are all grateful for. If I can bring Ms. Mehta in and your remarks.
Thank you. So over the last 30 years, we've seen India become the powerhouse that it is at the moment. And there's no doubt about it, because I've been practicing as a lawyer in this field for 30 years, UK immigration. And what I see now, and what I haven't seen in the past, is confident Indians. So Indians are coming to the UK confident because they're landing excellent jobs in really good fields, and they're innovating in those fields as well, which is something we hadn't seen in the past. So I think you're absolutely right that, if you like, the power balance has changed, and certainly 105% increase in the last year in NHS immigration visas for the UK. So that from India. So it just goes to show you that absolutely the NHS is being run by Indians. Then just to say from the other side, so I'm a shortlist judge for the Asian Women of Achievement Awards, and we recognise Indians living in the UK, Chinese living in the UK, women and what their achievements are. We give them a platform, and the work that our ladies are doing, I have to tell you, incredible. Consultant surgeons, engineers, architects, president of the Institute of Actuaries. In every sector, our ladies are excelling. So I have to, this is a shout out not only for India, but for our Indian ladies. We're making it happen.
Absolutely. We are super proud of all the contributions that Indians are making in the UK. And now if I can come back to Shri Annamalai ji and So you are a prominent leader and an advocate for greater youth participation in Indian politics. You were a part of the Indian Police Service, and then you chose to join Indian politics. So what drove this decision, and what was it about Indian politics that made you change career paths? And we have a very young audience here, young professionals. So what would be your advice to the young professionals sitting here, who want to make a change, who want to make societal change, work for the society, but unfortunately don't see politics as the best career choice to do that? What advice would you give them?
I've just seen a very young friend from this side of the border, British side, who's into active politics here. All over the world, especially in India, I see a lot of young guys getting into politics now. One, the current setup, the current model, the current way the government is functioning, it is giving a lot of confidence for youngsters to get into politics. Maybe India of 1980, 1990 was not that open. The opportunities were not there. The politics was in a very different time frame. Especially after 2014, with Narendra Modi ji coming in, there's a lot of tectonic shift that is happening in Indian politics. One, now politics have become more about politics of aspiration. And that is pulling people from very different, diverse fields to get into politics. And people look up to public service as a sense of service. Though we say that very proudly that India as a country, we are one of the oldest democracy in the world, and we are also currently the largest democracy in the world by the sheer number. But if you look at the political parties operating within India, many political parties did not inspire that confidence. Family-run political parties, dynasties, third generation, fourth generation, and very backward-looking in its approach. Especially after Modi ji has come in 2014, he has brought a very tectonic shift with which politics is seen. Maybe I would say I'm also a beneficiary of Modi ji into Indian politics from 2014. That has really pushed people like me from sectors not directly connected into politics to get into politics to serve. And secondly, and we believe politics of our country has to keep up pace with the society of our country. Normally when we see all over the world, you see a gap between the society and the politics. Many a time the politics doesn't actually reflect society. If I ask the young guys sitting here, what fascinates you? I think for them what fascinates them would be, if I'm talking to a technology group, they'll say blockchain, they'll say artificial intelligence, they'll say this, they'll say that. But again, you bring a politician into a room full like this, you ask them what fascinates you. Probably none of the politician might not know there's something called AI, something called blockchain. So there is a gap. So the society, a part of this society should ideally be aspired to get into politics because the gap gets smaller and smaller. One fine day when politics truly reflects the spirit of society, we will not see a lot of tensions that is happening in the current world. So Modi ji is bridging it now. The politics, for example, Anil Shetty, even if he sits as an entrepreneur, he's also a politician back home in Karnataka. So as a Karyakarta, he does his work, he also runs his business, he does it. So recent politics is pulling this kind of people inside because he is a part of society, he wants to reflect society into politics. He believes this is the correct time to do that. So that could be the motivation factor for me, yes.
Thank you, Shri Annamalai ji. Indeed, bridging the gap between society and politics is an ideal that we seek to achieve, and creating a more inclusive political atmosphere so that the youth feel confident to choose it as a career option is an ideal that we hope to achieve. And Mr. Hirani, my next question is towards you. Brent and Harrow are known for their cosmopolitan environments. So as a councillor of the London Assembly representing these two constituencies, how do you foster an inclusive atmosphere that celebrates and assimilates the diverse cultures, traditions, and languages of the Indian diaspora, as well as promoting harmony and unity among different communities that exist there? So how do you ensure that bridge sustains? Especially you were elected to the council during 2021, if I'm right, and it was the time that was complicated by pandemic. So how did you still ensure that community building efforts are going on?
Yeah. So first of all, I think I'll address something that both of my partners next to me have said about age and youth, because that youth engagement is also important. But I'm also learning about your stats on the mean ages. So in the UK, I'm young, but in India, I'd be old, age of 28. But I think with me, it's about engagement. So before I was elected as an assembly member to City Hall, I was actually a local councillor as well in the London Borough of Brent before going on to the regional body at the London Assembly. That gave me a bit of a head start because campaigning during the pandemic was very, impossible. But we had to do it in different ways. That's video meetings, telephone canvassing, and then as restrictions opened up, we were able to leaflet and get our message out to communities. So engagement was very, very difficult if you were starting from a base of zero. But thankfully I had that advantage previously with my work in communities. And also, I think where I am, we have a population that is engaged within different communities as well. And one thing I will say about the political leaders where I am, whether it's the MPs or councillors from all political parties, we engage with all different communities as well. And that's how we make sure that we can have a harmonious society and that we are speaking to everyone that we represent. Although I am of Indian origin, I am a representative of all communities in my area. Yes, I have that advantage, but it's only because of that actually I work with political leaders that are of different backgrounds as well. So where I am at City Hall, I work with a Mayor of London of Pakistani origin and obviously me of Indian origin, but we work together across all communities. And by getting political leaders and faith leaders and community leaders on board from people who have no faith or all faiths, that's how we make sure that we keep the engagement going. We are practical as well, so when we know that we have organisations that have issues or people that have issues that they want taken forward, whether it's planning permission for temples and community groups wanting new centres or setting up new projects, because that was one advantage of the COVID period. Locally, where I am, where I was a councillor in Brent, I was also the cabinet member for public health during the first wave of the pandemic. And what I was able to do was work across communities because of issues like vaccine hesitancy, or also getting the message out to communities on public health around what the guidance was. We worked with faith leaders to say, in terms of the NHS or the council, it's very difficult for them to engage with communities they have little engagement with. But we work with those community leaders to get the spiritual leaders out to give the right messages according to government guidance so that we could keep that engagement going.
Indeed, Mr. Hirani, I'm myself a resident of Harrow, and having lived there for 9 months, I can say that the voices of the Indian communities have been heard pretty well, and not only Indian communities, but all the diaspora that lives there. And yeah, so coming on to the technical aspects of immigration, Sharmila, India and UK have a very dynamic relation, and the past few years have seen significant strides post-Brexit, and especially with reference to the ongoing free trade agreement negotiation between the two countries. So how do you think has the post-Brexit dynamics influenced immigration policies and regulations in the UK, particularly for young Indians? And how would the free trade agreement dynamic further impact young Indians who are considering to migrate to the UK?
Post-COVID was a very interesting time because the UK had lost not only a lot of Europeans as at 31st December 2020 when Brexit happened, but also those are Europeans who didn't come back to the UK because COVID had taught them perhaps they wanted to stay with their families, stay in their own countries. So it was a double whammy for the UK, a loss of many, many workers, and also how to pick ourselves up from COVID and how to rebuild, in a sense, our economy in much the same way as every other country in the world. And so what we saw Boris Johnson do, and partly he had to do this because he was the one who drove Brexit to happen, he opened the immigration borders, if you like, by extending immigration categories so that, for example, skilled workers, we've had a 63% increase in the number of Indian skilled workers coming to the UK. And as I said last year, 105% increase in NHS workers coming from India to the UK. So there's been a benefit to the UK for sure. I think there's a benefit to India for young Indians to come to the UK. My personal concern, slight concern, so I need to hear more, is there a brain drain? Are we draining India of its very best people? I would hope not. And so to your second point, this is the free trade agreement is, I think, where a lot of the sort of interaction and the benefits on both sides are actually going to happen. And we're going to see that will be the consequence if that trade agreement comes off. And from the current Prime Minister's side, we see that sort of welcome increase in visa categories with young Indian professionals category. 2,400 Indians were eligible and were granted their visas. They're able to apply in a ballot every February, and that was oversubscribed. So, and you know, because all they have to have is a degree and they can come and work here. One thing I'd like to see is more young Indians come here to set up their own businesses. Because that's those immigration categories, global talent, innovator founder, scale up, we're not seeing yet that come through. But I think it's a matter of time, because I think it's about confidence, and I think it's about firstly coming to the UK, seeing what it's like, finding your feet in the same way that we would if we came to work in Mumbai, and from there I think comes entrepreneurship. But at the moment, we're seeing a very open immigration system. Certainly, for the last few years, the most open I've ever seen it. There is pressure to reduce that. Of course there is. But in a sense, that political pressure is also about refugees and asylum seekers and those coming on the boats every day, running into the thousands. So the difficulty for immigration is that it's, on the one hand, it's economically driven, but on the other hand, politicians need to keep pulling it back to make it a political topic. My own view is that immigration should always sit in the economic sector. And there's an organization called the Migration Advisory Committee, and originally when they were set up, they were designed to actually look at the economics to see where the shortages lay, and to therefore encourage visa applicants in those sectors, in those occupations. But they've kind of been dumbed down by the politicians year after year. So let's see, it's very interesting. There's a theory that if you open the UK borders, immigration won't go into free fall, it will actually land correctly, because employers will drive this by picking the best and the brightest from wherever they want to, from anywhere in the world. And we're seeing a little bit of that at the moment. There's no requirement for an employer to advertise the role. They can just choose whoever they want to, satisfy themselves that the vacancy is genuine and that they've selected the person for genuine reasons, and that's all. And I think we're one of the only countries in the world who has that level of open system. So I think it's all to play for, but someone needs to tell me that we're not draining India.
Please.
UK has two options. Either you allow more Indians to come in to develop UK, or you Britishers should produce more kids so that you will have a median age of 28. So you have to.
And that's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Then allow
anytime
Indians
soon.
to come in. So India produces 1.5 million engineers every year. So don't worry about it. So we can send as many as possible, whoever wants to go. Of course, that I don't want to make it a controversial statement saying that leave India. No, I'm not saying anybody to leave India. Of course, you should stay in India and contribute to the India's economic and the growth of India. So, of course, whoever wants to come any part of the world, and we're very proud of every Indian, we have about 40 million Indians outside of, our diaspora is 40 million, Manoj should be knowing, the 40 million, 30 million. It's a huge diaspora, right? And we're very proud of what they have achieved being in different countries, and we don't have problems. So there's no brain drain because we produce enough number of engineers, enough number of doctors. I think what we also learn from UK is what they have done with education and healthcare. I think it's also more people come here and they learn and we go back. A lot of doctors, a lot of people who've studied here have gone back and contributed largely to the India's education sector and the public health sector growth. So I think India-UK partnership is growing very strongly over the period of last few years. I would say even in the last decade, Prime Minister Modi ji has ensured that there is a kind of a feel that India is a country which is open for partnership, and UK has responded to it, and that's why we see this free trade agreement. We almost have $50 billion in trade now, and it's increasing by what, 10-15% a year. And I think we are going to be a large partner in the coming decade. And I would, of course, we don't advise to the world, unlike the West. We don't advise too much to the other countries, so we keep it to ourselves. But still, on a softer note, I think UK has to catch up a lot with the technology, which India can help. And India could learn a lot about how to build a higher education system and the healthcare system, which we will happy to learn from the UK's success story. I think I would say that this partnership is going to be much stronger in the future.
Definitely, Mr. Shetty. And on this very podium, Professor Manoj Ladwa previously stated that in today's hyper-globalized world where everything is connected, we must get rid of our fears that whether we are draining our brains or not. But I would just like to think what Shri Annamalai ji has to say on the same topic.
Brain drain?
Brain drain, yeah.
Yeah, so I would say the kids who come from India outside, 220,000 kids who come, you have made a very careful choice. Anybody who wants to come out of India, come to UK, it's a very careful decision you make. You look at courses, you look at options, you look at professors. Absolutely. It doesn't mean that you want to forsake the country and come out. It's a very careful choice you make. And of late, we see in a very globally interconnected world, the boundaries are getting broken. There's no more silos now. Tomorrow I'm visiting a university, Warwick University. I was very excited to see the Lord Bhattacharya Center there, which is a classic example of how when countries collaborate, humanities prosper. And the British, UK's, the state-of-the-art automotive research center is there. It's a collaboration between British government, Tata's, Land Rover, and some of the finest professors who are here. And they manufacture, they try and invent the next generation of cutting-edge automotive solutions there. And India cannot take pride in it. UK cannot take pride in it. There is an Indian company invested. There is a UK academician's brain inside. So the future is going to be like this. So no more we can argue about this country, that country. It is more about collectively when you come out of the border, your consciousness gets improved. You learn so much. And even if you choose to work in UK after education, possibly both of you sitting here, but still it is not going to be India's loss because you are improving the world economy and we are getting your remittances back to our country. And more importantly, one fine day you might decide after 10 years, 20 years, you might like to come back to India. And thanks to UK, which has enriched you, which has added so much, the country, we should be grateful to UK also because the country is so gratefully allowing its borders to be open, a country that is not preventing anybody from coming in, the country that is sharing its resources, that is treating every single person entering into UK absolutely, equally, well-deservingly, right? So I would say it's a model. And 20 years from now, the country's border silos will go. It is more about what are you adding to the global human consciousness? What are you adding to the world economy? So I actually don't have a problem with brain drain.
Absolutely. I mean, not only our remittances, but we as young professionals are motivated to get back to India, work for the Indian society and the Indian cause. And as you rightly mentioned, we're all global citizens now in this global village. As the motto this year is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, and we are all one. And so there are no Indians moving out of the borders. It is for a greater cause. Due to time constraints, we'll probably take 2 to 3 questions from the audience. If anyone has a questions, and we can have a mic in the audience. And please, if I can request you to keep your question brief, and let's avoid comments and remarks, but a quick question. If I can start with that gentleman there.
Can you hear me? Is this okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening to everyone. My name is Karthik. I'm a student at the London School of Economics. Annamalai அவர்களுக்கு வணக்கம். தமிழ் சென்னையிலேருந்து வந்திருக்கேன். அதனால உங்களை பார்க்கறதுக்கு ரொம்ப சந்தோஷமா இருக்கு. Yeah, I'm translating now. Don't worry. So my question really is to all members of this panel, because despite the fact that we've talked about these counter-hegemonic forces of youth being really challenging the status quo, in many ways we see that they still have this traditional aspect of, both in terms of politics or in the economy, still preventing this kind of rapid change. For example, if we look at the way in which older voters in the UK dominate politics in terms of the importance that they have in certain groups like the Conservative Party, or we look at the fact that the failure of non-ADMK or DMK parties to break through in Tamil Nadu, for example, there has been the importance and the hegemonic power of pre-existing strengths and coalitions seems hard to change fundamentally. And what is your opinion on this? Do you think it's a temporary thing or more something that happens over time that, will continue to exist?
Thank you. Who do you want to go? I'm happy to go first. Vanakkam. As I've learned all the different ways of welcoming different communities in my patch, but I think in the UK, politics is very cyclical. So you tend to get 10 to 15 years of one particular party in power, whether that's locally, national, regionally, and then switching over to another. I think let's say as an Indian community or Indian diaspora, I think it's always, and I'm taking sort of my political beliefs out of it, but it's really important that you engage with all political parties, because that engagement is needed to keep that conversation and keep that bridge going. I know as part of this forum, I know obviously Sir Keir Starmer, who's the leader of my party, is speaking on Monday. But it's about making sure that engagement at all levels between some of those community leaders, but also people on the ground, stays constant. One thing that I have found is that, and I'll be honest, my political party has suffered in terms of parliamentary elections with the India diaspora, and that connection wasn't there. Locally, we didn't feel that. So when it came to local elections or regional elections, because we were on the ground engaging with the issues and engaging with those communities, we didn't tend to feel it on the local level. But the onus is not just on the community; it's on politicians as well. So we need to keep engaging with the community, despite sometimes some of those conversations may be difficult. But it's politicians also that need to not be afraid to come out and speak and engage with different communities.
You want to add anybody? Okay. Next.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Riddhi Vishwanathan. I am an edtech entrepreneur and a former student leader. So today my question is regarding a conflict that I personally face, and I know a number of young Indians are facing, because we've built our careers around in the UK, coming here as students, spending most of our professional lives here. But again, our roots boil down to the country we come from, India. Having the passion to contribute and exercise our rights back in our home country, and still wanting to stick to the careers we've built here. Do you think it's about time India starts considering dual citizenship? Thank you.
Do you want to respond to that?
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your question, because when I see a lot of friends here, they have this emotional conflict right inside. Last 2-3 days, I'm meeting a lot of my friends here. They come from India, people 10 years before, somebody 15 years before. But there is that longing to come back to our country. But at the same time, they are very well, have stable jobs here, families settled, kids are studying. But you know India is a populous country, 142 crore. And the politics of identity is changing very fast. Because we are coming to the politics of identity. It doesn't mean that you have come out of country 10 years before you have come and settled in UK. You might have a conflict and you might love both countries equally, but you want to have a say in the way India is governed. You might want to have your voice in that country, but you might have to like to have an economic voice in UK. It's perfectly fine. I'm sure India has to listen to voices like you. It's very clear. And India is also rapidly changing. And like Manojji was telling, it's 3.1 crore, 31 million diaspora. The government has just come up with PIO card that was unthinkable many decades back. Now PIO has come in. And now for the very first time, we see after Modiji has come in, the diasporas are celebrated. Back home, when Modiji gets the kind of reception in US and UK, the kind of reception he gets, and all of us are like goosebump moments. Because we know 80% of the people who are giving reception to Modiji, they are not citizens of our country, at least in the paper sake. But 80% of the people there, they have that equal rootedness for India. So it is changing. Let us wait for another 10 years. Because nobody thought PIO was possible. Maybe now, if somebody thinks it is not possible, the idea of dual citizenship is not possible, let us wait 10 more years. Because the politics of identity is changing, and your voice is a very important voice, and we have to listen to you. Because we owe it to you, because you have your roots in our country. And simply because you have just come out doesn't mean we should close our ears and stop listening to you. But we are open to listen to you, and we will listen to you. Let us give a decade. It might happen. Let us wait and see.
Ms. Mehta, if you want to add in something about the technicalities of her question and on the technical aspect of these dual citizenship.
Absolutely. I mean, 100% I'm with you because I see that tension with my clients. They've made the UK their home. Their heart is here. But there's no doubt that even if you're not born in India, if you're Indian, your heart is Indian. There's no doubt about that. So I absolutely agree with you. But you know, India isn't the only country that is working and thinking about dual citizenship. Japan, for example, doesn't allow it. China, you know, is taking time. Spain makes it very difficult. Australia only relatively recently has made it happen as well. So I think you're right. I think it will come in time. And in the meantime, there's PIO, OCI. But there are hoops that I know my clients jump through to get their British passport, relinquish the Indian passport, and then get the OCI. And it shouldn't be like that, but I think it will come.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And we'll have one last question from gentleman in the orange shirt.
Hello everyone, I am Jaideep Bansal. I am a chartered accountant and doing my master's in law from King's College London. You know, we often have this discussion among the chartered accountants that despite, you know, as an Indian, we have been contributing both to the Indian and the British economy. Yet, you know, the Western media is still very skeptical about the India. I would like to know comments both from a person who has been associated with the Indian politics and the UK politics. Thank you. More skepticism towards Indian politics in the West.
In the Western media,
I would say they don't know Indian politics. So it's very hard to understand Indian politics. It's very complex. And we belong to a neighboring state. And trust me, I don't know Tamil politics. And I only understand. It's very hard. Let me be very humble and say I don't know Tamil politics. It's quite complex. And Prime Minister, while speaking at US, he said, in India, for every 10 kilometers you have a new cuisine. Every 10 kilometers, probably every district there is a new language with a dialect. So India is very diverse. It's impossible for anybody to understand India so well and Indian politics so well. It's not possible, especially the Western media, and I don't want to get into the negative aspect of it. In general, I would say that they don't do their research well. So because sometimes they listen to those who come out of India and speak here. And don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. You know you are an Indian by spirit, and if, I don't know whether you have the citizenship here or card here. So whatever. So don't worry about what Western media talks about Indian politics. Leave the Indian politics to Indian politicians. We'll handle it. And you also being an Indian, just don't bother. Just listen to...
Mr. Hirani, if you want to add something to that.
I will. I think the media in general in this country is a very difficult nut to crack, because if you look at not just how it views India politics, but actually how it interferes with politics in this country as well. So if you look at the owners of the newspapers, they have their relationship with political parties with a certain viewpoint, and then they are trying to channel that through their medium. So as much as people like to believe in a free press or a press that is independent, in this country it's very intertwined and mixed. It's a deep-rooted cultural issue in this country in terms of how the media moguls basically are cooperating with some of the political parties. My political party also benefits from that with certain newspapers as well. So I'm being sort of honest from all sides. But there are sort of agendas that editors do want to drive forward.
With your permission, can I add something?
Please, please.
Just to add to both of my friends' very insightful answers. One thing we have to understand, especially from the Western side, anybody who's skeptical of Indian politics should understand Indian democracy is very deep-rooted. It is very old, and 1,000 years, 1,200 years before, we had a very democratic way of village councils, democratic way of panchayat elections, even during the Chola period. So it's very deeply democratic country. It is in our DNA. We have to understand that. So any assessment of Indian politics should come with this basic belief that democracy is heavily intertwined in India's DNA. Second, it's a very complex country. As we mentioned, 22 official languages. 121 languages are spoken by 10,000 people and more. If you count our dialects and small languages, it is more than 20,000, the dialects. And issue of caste, issue of regionalism, issue of problems within the country with respect to small issues between states, with respect to identity. So the politics of India has to truly reflect each of this. So anybody who sits in a very, very clear whiteboard and tries to fit into the Indian political system into black and white, it is not possible. And this has evolved over centuries. And it is noisy, yes. And we have in our country, if somebody wants to protest, they can block a national highway for 9 months, they are allowed to protest. The main artery road linking two major cities of India, we allow our protesters to come and protest for 9 months, blocking that road, inconveniencing crores of people. That is how deep our democracy is. So they have to understand. And for any Western media talking about police using a lathi charge, police using a baton and everything, they have to understand we allow our protesters to do that. That not even in a country like Britain, that kind of democratic leeway is given. So it is very tough for people to evaluate it from outside. So I only request many of our friends from many eminent publications to come stay with us for some time. Cover elections, be a part of the process, try and decipher some meaning out of the noise that we make in India. That probably, so to simply put, like our Anil Shetty ji said, Indian politics operates in Indian way. If anybody wants to evaluate in Western lens, they will definitely fail.
Well, on that note, I would like to thank all our esteemed panelists for providing such insightful and thought-provoking responses, truly enriching our discussion here, and with your expertise and diverse perspectives. Please join me in thanking Shri Annamalai ji, Mr. Krupesh Hirani, Mr. Anil Shetty, and Ms. Sharmila Mehta. And this also brings us to the end of our Young Leaders Forum. On behalf of Young Leaders Forum and all the inspiring young minds gathered here today, I would like to express my heartfelt gratitude to all of you for being a part of this remarkable forum. We are immensely, to start with, grateful to Professor Manoj Ladwa for giving us this platform and sharing his valuable insights with us. Sir, your guidance has been a tremendous source for inspiration for all of us. I would like to extend our sincere appreciation to all the distinguished guests, industry leaders, mentors who've taken out time and joined us today. Thank you so much. Your wisdom and guidance are invaluable in shaping the future leaders of our nation. To my fellow young leaders, your passion, enthusiasm, and commitment to driving positive change have been truly remarkable. It is your dedication that has made this conclave a resounding success. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate our gratitude to each and every one of you for being a part of this journey. Let us carry the knowledge and inspiration gained from this conclave today and strive towards making a meaningful impact in our respective fields. Thank you all once again. Let us continue our collective pursuit for building a brighter future for the world. Thank you so much. Thank you, Annamalai ji.
Very well
Pleasure.
done.
Thank you so much.